The girl no one wanted. The night sky over the alien marketplace burned with neon lights, but inside the auction hall there was only darkness. Only the sound of chains dragging across the floor. The crowd was restless. Hundreds of strange faces scales. Fur, horns, creatures from across the galaxy, all gathered to buy and sell lives like animals. One by one, slaves were pulled out and displayed under the cold glow of the lights. Some strong, some skilled, all sold to the highest bidder. But then came a small figure, thin and trembling, her eyes lowered to the ground. An alien orphan girl, barely more than a child, dragged forward with iron around her wrists. The auctioneer raised his voice. Lot number 84, half-starved, weak, no parents, no clan, no use. The crowd laughed, some even spat, calling her broken, useless, not even worth feeding, not even female enough, one sneered. No one would want her, not even as a mate. The girl's heart pounded. She had heard those words too many times before. No one had ever wanted her, not her family, not her people, not even the merchants who now tried to sell her. Her gaze dropped to the floor, and she wished she could disappear. The auctioneer's voice grew sharp. Do I hear a bid? Anyone? She's cheap, worth less than a ration pack. Silence answered. The crowd turned away, uninterested. The orphan girl stood frozen, the weight of rejection pressing down like a mountain. For a moment she believed this was the end, that she would be thrown into the garbage pits outside the city like the others no one wanted. Her throat burned, but she did not cry. She had no tears left to give. Then, just as the auctioneer was about to push her aside, a voice cut through the noise. I'll take her. The words echoed, calm but firm. Every head in the hall turned toward the sound. At the back of the crowd, a tall figure stepped forward, not scaled, not horned, not alien human. Gasps rippled through the room. A human in this place was. Rare, dangerous, a reminder of the Deathworlder's strange reputation. The orphan girl dared to raise her eyes, and for the first time she saw him broad-shouldered, wearing a simple coat, his face calm, but his eyes burning with something she could not name. The auctioneer stumbled over his words. You want this one? She is worthless. But the human did not flinch. He reached into his pocket and dropped a handful of credits on the platform, the clink of metal silencing every whisper. She is mine now, he said, his voice steady. The crowd erupted in laughter and disbelief, some shouting insults, others muttering that the human must be mad. Of all the things he could buy, he chooses her? Someone mocked. The orphan girl felt her knees weaken, her mind spinning. Why? Why would anyone want her? Her whole life had been rejection, pain, abandonment. Now, a human had chosen her when no one else even looked twice. The guard shoved her forward, chains rattling as she stumbled into his shadow. She waited for a blow, for harsh words, for the cruelty that always followed. Instead, the human crouched to her level, his voice low, almost gentle. You don't belong in chains, he said, unlocking the iron cuffs with a device from his belt. Her wrists were raw, scarred, but free. The girl stared at him, confused, afraid. This had to be a trick. She thought it always was. Yet his eyes held no cruelty, only something she could not understand, pity. Or maybe something more, the auctioneer grumbled, shoving the credits into his pouch. Fine, take the trash. She's your problem now. The human ignored him, placing a small packet of food into the girl's trembling hands. The smell of bread and protein filled her nose, and for the first time in years, she felt hunger roar inside her like fire. She hesitated, certain it was poisoned, certain this was another test. But the human nodded once, as if giving her permission. Her fingers tore into the packet, and she ate like an animal, desperate, ashamed, but unable to stop. The human said nothing, only stood guard as if daring anyone to interfere. The crowd still whispered, watching with narrowed eyes. Some muttered that the human had lost his mind. Others said he must have a secret plan. The orphan girl, her stomach finally warm with food, dared to glance up at him again. Why? She wanted to ask, why me? But her throat locked, the words refused. To come instead, she whispered the only thing her heart could form, so soft even she barely heard it. Why? The human looked at her, and though his face was calm, his answer was left unspoken. He only turned and guided her out of the auction hall. The neon lights fading behind them, the girl's mind spun with fear and confusion, but also with something new, a spark, tiny and fragile, but alive for the first time. She wondered if her life might not end in chains after all. Outside, the cold night wind wrapped around her, but his presence felt like a shield. Every step away from the hall was a step into the unknown. And in that moment, though she did not yet trust him, though her heart still ached with scars, she realized one truth that would stay with her forever when no one else wanted her. When the galaxy had cast her aside, a human had claimed her, and nothing would ever be the same again. Asterisk the human's choice. The night air outside the market was thick with smoke and whispers. Neon signs flickered in broken colors, and shadows followed. Every step, the human, known only as Rin to those who dared speak his name, walked steadily through the alleys with the orphan girl close behind. Her bare feet stumbled against the cracked stone, but he did not slow. His stride was strong, determined, as if he had chosen a path no one could turn him from. The chains around her wrists were gone, but their ghost still clung to her skin, every clink in her memory echoing with shame. She kept her eyes lowered, certain that this strange human would soon reveal his true intention, for no one was kind without reason, no one saved without a price. They passed groups of aliens leaning in the shadows, their eyes glowing with greed and curiosity, whispers carried in the night. That human. He took the useless one. Madness, no. Look at him, maybe he knows something we don't. The girl flinched with every glance, expecting to be pulled away again, expecting to be sold a second time, but the human's hand rested calmly near the weapon on his belt, and the predators in the crowd did not dare step forward. Finally, he stopped in a dim courtyard where broken lanterns cast long streaks of light across the ground. He crouched, his face level with hers, his eyes steady, calm, but sharp like steel beneath the surface. "What's your name?" he asked, his voice carrying no cruelty, no command, only a strange patience. The girl froze, her throat tightening. Her name had been beaten out of her long ago, replaced by insults and numbers. She whispered a sound, barely audible, but he nodded as if she had shouted it with pride. "Good," he said. "Names matter. And now you are free to keep yours." She shook her head quickly. "No, I am not free," her voice cracked. "You bought me." Rin's eyes did not waver. His answer came steady. "I did not buy you. I claimed you, because no one else would, and because no one else should have you." His words confused her, sharp and heavy, different from the simple cruelty she expected. Why? She wanted to ask, why her, why now? But before she could speak again, movements stirred in the dark. Figures emerged from the alleys. A group of alien hunters with sharp teeth and sharper blades, their leader smirking as he blocked the exit. Well, a human walking with trash," the leader sneered. "You paid good coin for nothing. Friend, maybe you should hand her over to us before you regret it." The girl froze, terror flooding her chest. She knew this routine. She had been passed from hand to hand before, always with pain at the end. But Rin did not move. His hand slid slowly to his sidearm, the crowd of hunters chuckling at his call. "I don't regret my choices," he said, softly, "but you will regret yours if you take one more step." The hunters laughed, circling closer, their claws scraping the stone. The orphan girl's breath came quick, shallow, her body shaking as she pressed herself against the wall. Her eyes darted toward Rin, expecting him to give her away, to throw her aside and fight for his own escape. Instead, he placed himself between her and the hunters, his shoulders squared, his stance wide like a shield. In that moment, she saw it clearly. He was not just protecting her out of pity. He was standing as though the galaxy itself would have to break him to reach her. Leader hissed, "Brave words, human, but you are alone." Rin's lips tightened. "I've been alone before," he said, and his weapon flashed from its holster. The sound of energy fire split the night, a blinding pulse cutting through the darkness. The first hunter fell before he could even scream, the others freezing. In shock, Rin's eyes burned with fire, his movements sharp, precise. Each shot a warning that he did not miss. The hunters snarled, but none stepped forward. The smell of burned stone rising as Rin aimed steadily at their leader, the courtyard, was silent except for the faint hum of his weapon. Finally, the leader spat on the ground and stepped back, his pride bleeding out with his courage. "Not worth it," he growled, retreating with his pack into the shadows, their laughter fading into the night. The orphan girl pressed her trembling hands against her mouth, her eyes wide. Never had anyone fought for her. Never had anyone chosen her safety over their own. She could not understand it, her chest a storm of confusion and fear, and something new she dared not name. Rin lowered his weapon, holstered it with calm precision, then turned back to her. "You are under my protection now," he said, his tone simple, final, like a law carved into stone. The girl shook her head, her voice trembling. "But I am nothing. Why risk your life for me?" He did not answer at once, only knelt again so she could see the truth in his eyes. "Because sometimes," he said slowly, "the ones everyone calls nothing are the ones who matter most." Her breath caught, the words sinking deeper than she wanted them to. No one had ever spoken to her that way. No one had ever seen her as more than a burden or a tool. She wanted to believe him, but doubt gnawed at her heart. Still, for the first time, a fragile thought whispered inside her mind, maybe she was worth saving. Rin stood and offered his hand, not forcing, only waiting. The girl stared at it, her fingers twitching, chained by fear and mistrust. Finally, she lifted her hand, slow and hesitant, and placed it in his. His grip was steady, firm but not crushing, a silent promise. The night air felt less cold, the shadows less heavy, and as he led her away from the courtyard, she realized that her story, the story no one wanted, had just begun. The first bond the city behind them was a maze of fire and steel. But the further they walked, the quieter it became. The neon lights faded into dim lanterns, and then into the soft glow of scattered stars above. The orphan girl walked with small, uncertain steps, her hand still caught in his, as if she was afraid letting go would mean losing the little safety she had found. But in her heart, she still waited for the moment the mask would fall, for the moment this human would show himself to be like all the others. Cruel, greedy, untrustworthy. She had learned to survive by expecting betrayal, and trust was a word she no longer believed in. Rin led her to a narrow hideout carved into the stone, a place hidden from prying eyes. It was not much metal walls patched with old plates, a single lamp hanging from the ceiling, a table with maps and weapons spread across it. But to her, it looked like a palace compared to the filth she had lived in. She stood frozen at the entrance, unsure if she was allowed to step inside. Rin glanced at her, his expression unreadable, then simply said, "Come in," his voice carried. No threat, no demand, just an invitation. Still, her feet dragged slowly, each step heavy with suspicion. Inside, Rin placed his weapon on the table and began unbuckling his coat. Moving with calm precision, the girl stood in the corner, her arms folded tightly across her chest, her eyes sharp with fear, her stomach twisted again. But this time not from hunger, but from confusion. Why was he not forcing her? Why was he not shouting or commanding her? Instead, he walked over to a storage unit, pulled out another packet of food, and set it on the table without a word. Her eyes locked on it, her throat dry, her body torn between caution and hunger. When she didn't move, Rin finally looked at her and said, "Eat. No one will take it from you." The words echoed in her mind, strange and heavy. No one will take it from you. She crept forward, snatched the packet, and backed away like a cornered animal. Tearing it open with trembling hands, Rin said nothing, only sat at the table and began checking his maps, as though her presence was not a burden, as though she belonged there. Every bite she took felt unreal. Every moment she expected him to grab the food back, to laugh at her for believing, but the laughter never came. When she finally finished, her chest rose and fell in silence, her body shaking not. From hunger, no, but from the weight of something new. She whispered softly, almost to herself, "Why? Why are you doing this?" Rin looked up, his eyes steady, his voice calm. "Because you needed someone." Her heart pounded. She hated those words. Hated how they made her feel weak. Hated how they cracked the walls she had built around herself. She snapped back, "No, I don't need anyone." Her voice sharp, but her eyes wet with a storm she could not control. Rin didn't argue, didn't force his truth on her. He only said, "Maybe not, but I'll be here anyway." The silence that followed felt heavier than chains. For the first time in her life, she had no answer, no way to fight back against kindness. She wanted to scream at him, to push him away, but her body betrayed her. Shoulders sagged, her legs gave out, and she sank to the floor. Her eyes burned, tears spilling against her will, the first she had shed in years. She hated herself for it, hated that he could see her weakness. But when she looked up, expecting his judgment, she found none. Rin simply placed a blanket beside her and returned to his maps, giving her silence instead of shame. The night stretched on, filled with quiet sounds, the scratching of his pen across paper, the soft hum of the lamp, her own uneven breathing. For the first time, she did not sleep in fear of being dragged away. For the first time, her dreams were not filled with chains. When dawn broke, faint sunlight bleeding into the cracks of the hideout, she opened her eyes to find Rin sitting near the entrance, awake, guarding. Her chest tightened. He had watched over her through the night, not as an owner, not as a jailer, but as something she could not yet name. Later, when they stepped out into the light of the alien world, the streets buzzed with rumor. Everywhere eyes followed them, whispers hissing like blades. That human still has her. Why keep trash? There must be something hidden about the girl. The girl felt their stares like knives, shame pulling her head down. But then she felt Rin's presence at her side, steady and unshaken. He did not walk ahead of her like she was a slave. He did not push her behind him like a burden. He walked with her, step by step, as though she mattered. For the first time in her life, she began to wonder if maybe she did. But the galaxy was not so easily fooled, and danger lingered just beyond. The crowd, from the shadows, unseen eyes watched her closely. Eyes that did not see a worthless orphan, but something far more valuable, something dangerous, something worth killing for. And though she did not yet know it, her bond with the human had already painted a target on them both. Asterisk whispers in the dark. The city never slept, but it always listened. In the narrow alleys, in the smoke-filled bars, in the rusting markets where voices carried like fire, a new story began to spread. A human bought the worthless orphan. Some whispered, not just bought, claimed. Others hissed, no one throws away credits for nothing. He must know something. The words twisted like snakes through the streets, and every set of ears bent closer, some with curiosity, others with greed, and many with fear. The orphan girl felt it as she walked, the weight of 1,000 eyes following her. She pulled her hood lower, but nothing could hide her face. Nothing could hide what she was: unwanted, discarded, weak. Or so she believed. Beside her, Rin's steps never faltered, his eyes scanning the shadows, his hand never far from his weapon. The people they passed laughed, mocked, whispered cruel jokes, but he did not answer. He did not waste his breath on them. His silence was heavier than their words, and somehow more dangerous. But in the corners where the light did not reach, others were speaking. Hunters, mercenaries, traders of secrets. They gathered around tables, their voices hushed. "If the human wants her, then she is worth something," one said, his eyes narrow. "We should take her." "No," another growled. "If she is worthless, she is not worth the risk. Humans are not to be crossed lightly." But greed was a stronger fire than caution, and soon the whispers turned into plans. Plans that followed the human and the girl like shadows, stretching longer with every step. Inside the hideout, the girl sat quietly, her knees pulled to her chest, listening to the hum of Rin's devices. He studied maps, coordinates, alien codes flashing. On the screen, she could not read them, but she knew they meant danger. At last, she spoke, her voice small. "They are watching us." Rin did not look up. "Yes," he said calmly, as if he had expected it from the start. Her hands tightened around her knees. "They will come." He finally raised his eyes, his gaze steady. "Then we will be ready." His certainty shook her more than fear. Why was he not afraid? Why did he stand so calm when the whole city seemed to want them dead? She wanted to believe in his strength, but her heart whispered the same old lie: sooner or later, he would abandon her, just like everyone else. But even as she thought it, she remembered the way he had stood between her and the hunters, the way his weapon burned through the night, and she felt the tiniest spark of something dangerous hope. That night, when the city's lights burned low, the whispers grew louder. A meeting was called in the back room of a tavern, where smoke and shadows choked the air. The leader of the mercenaries leaned forward, his voice rough. "The girl is no ordinary orphan. Rumor says she is one of the lost bloodline." The others stiffened. Some laughed nervously. Others hissed in denial. Impossible. Her kind was purged. But what if she survived? The leader pressed. What if the human knows and is hiding her? The silence that followed was thick with hunger, not for food, but for power. And in that silence, the decision was made, whether she was valuable or not. They would take her and sell her to the highest bidder. Far away, the girl awoke with a chur. Start, her heart racing. She felt it, even before the attack came, a pressure in her chest, a whisper in her blood, as though danger had already touched her. She slipped to the entrance of the hideout, staring out into the night. The streets were quiet, but too quiet. Her breath caught when she saw movement on the rooftops, shadows sliding like predators preparing to strike. Rin stepped behind her, his voice calm. "You sense it too?" She nodded, unable to speak, her body trembling. "Good," he said. "Then you will learn something tonight." Before she could ask, the first shot cracked through the air, burning into the stone near. Their feet, figures dropped from the rooftops, blades and rifles gleaming in the moonlight, their eyes filled with greed. The girl stumbled back, panic choking her chest, but Rin moved forward, his weapon already in his hand. He fired once, twice, each shot precise, each shot sending another mercenary crashing to the ground. But more kept coming, pouring out of the alleys like a tide of teeth and steel. The girl pressed herself against the wall, her body shaking, her voice breaking. "We cannot win." Rin didn't turn, his eyes sharp, his voice steady. "You are wrong. Listen. Do you hear it?" At first, she only heard her own heartbeat, the clash of weapons, the screams of the dying. But then she felt it, something deeper, something in her blood, like a voice calling. like a fire begging to be unleashed. Her hands glowed faintly, faint. Sparks of light she did not understand. She gasped, staring at them, terrified. Rin glanced back for only a second, his eyes hard but not unkind. That is why they want you, because you are not worthless, not broken, but dangerous. The words cut through her fear like a blade. The hunters lunged again, but this time when she raised her hands, a burst of light flared outward, throwing them back in a wave of energy. Her own body shook with the force, her chest heaving, her eyes wide with terror at what she had just done. The mercenaries stumbled, fear now crawling into their eyes. Impossible, one hissed. She should not exist, but Rin stood tall, his voice carrying like thunder. She exists, and she is under my protection. The survivors fled into the dark, their whispers scattering with them. But the damage was done, the secret no longer hidden. The girl stared at her glowing hands, fear and wonder twisting inside her. She looked at Rin, her voice shaking. What am I? He holstered his weapon, his face calm, but his words heavy. Not what they told you. Not worthless, not unwanted, he said. You are more than they could ever understand. And in the silence that followed, she realized the truth. The whispers in the dark were no longer about a useless orphan. They were about her, the girl the galaxy had tried to erase, and the human who would not let them. Asterisk, the storm breaks. The night was not over. It had only just begun. The mercenaries who fled carried whispers through the city, whispers that spread faster than fire. The girl has power, they said. She is dangerous, and the human protects her. By dawn, the alleys were alive with hunters, killers, and syndicates sharpening their blades, every one of them drawn by greed and fear. The storm was coming, and neither the girl nor Rin could hide from it. In the small hideout, the girl sat trembling, her hands still glowing faintly from the light that had burst out of her the night before. She stared at them, horrified. What if I hurt you? She whispered, her voice breaking. Rin crouched before her, his gaze steady, his voice calm. Then you will learn to control it. Her eyes filled with tears. But I don't understand it. You don't have to, he replied. Not yet. All you need to understand is this. You are not alone anymore. The words sank into her chest, heavy but warm. No one had ever said them to her. No one had ever stood beside her long enough to mean them. And yet, before she could believe, the sound of boots and weapons thundered outside. The hideout shook. With the force of a blast, the doors rattling as shadows moved across the windows. Rin rose to his feet, his eyes narrowing. They're here. The girl's heart raced, her throat tight with terror. We cannot fight them all. But Rin only reached for his rifle, pulling a small blade free with his other hand. His voice was sharp, steady, unshaken. We don't have to fight them all only enough to make the rest afraid. The first explosion tore through the door, the metal screaming as mercenaries stormed in, their eyes burning with greed, their weapons raised. The girl screamed, stumbling back, but Rin moved like lightning, his rifle spitting fire into the dark. One mercenary dropped, then another, each shot precise, controlled. The attackers roared, rushing forward, but Rin met them head-on, blade flashing, his movements a storm of discipline and rage. The girl had never seen anyone fight like him, not with fury, not with desperation, but with absolute certainty. Every strike, every shot, every motion said one thing. You will not take her, but more poured in, their numbers endless. The walls shuddering under the weight of the battle. The girl pressed herself into the corner, her body shaking, her breath shallow. She felt useless, weak, a burden dragging him down. But then, in the chaos, she saw something. Rin bleeding, a blade cutting across his arm, his body staggering for just a moment. Her chest tightened, fear breaking into fire. She raised her hands without thinking, light exploding from her palms. A wave of force slamming into the attackers. Throwing them back against the walls, the mercenaries screamed as the energy burned across their skin, not killing them, but leaving them broken and afraid. For a moment, silence filled the hideout, broken only by the hum of her power and the sound of Rin's breathing. The girl stared at her hands in horror, her voice trembling. "I didn't mean." Rin cut her off, his voice firm. "Good." She blinked, confused. "Good?" He nodded, his eyes fierce. "Because now they know they will not take you without fear." But the battle was not over. The walls outside shook with another explosion. Voices rising. "Kill the human. Take the girl alive." Dozens more stormed in, rifles blazing, blades glinting in the firelight. The hideout became a war zone, smoke and blood filling the air. Rin fought like a man carved from steel, his rifle burning with light, his blade singing as it cut through. The dark, the girl's fear became fire again, her hands glowing brighter, her power answering his fury. Together, they were no longer prey, they were something else, something the galaxy had not expected. Still, the numbers pressed harder, and Rin staggered under the weight of it, his voice sharp. "Listen to me, don't hold it back. If you want to live, if you want us to live, you must let it out." Her chest burned, her eyes wide with terror. "I don't know if I can." "You can," he shouted over the roar of battle, "because I believe in you, even if you don't." The words struck deeper than any blade. Her breath caught, her power surged, and in a single cry she released it all. The hideout shattered with light, a storm bursting outward, consuming the attackers in a wave of energy that shook the ground itself. The mercenaries screamed, their weapons falling, their bodies hurled into the night, and then silence, smoke, drifted through the broken hideout, bodies scattered, walls scorched. The girl collapsed to her knees, her chest heaving, her body trembling with exhaustion, her hands dimmed, the glow fading, but her heart still raced with fear. She looked up at Rin, her voice shaking. What am I becoming?" Rin, bleeding but standing, holstered his weapon and crouched before her, his voice firm, steady. "Not becoming, revealing. This is who you always were. This is why they fear you." Her eyes filled with tears. "But I am afraid of myself." He shook his head. "Good. Fear keeps you human. But remember this, they fear you more than you fear yourself. And that gives us the advantage." Outside, the city stirred, whispers rising like smoke. The storm had broken. The girl's secret was no longer hidden, and the galaxy would never see her as worthless again. But now, more eyes than ever turned toward them. Not just mercenaries, not just hunters, but powers greater than either of them could imagine. And though the night had ended, the war for her future had only begun. Asterisk. The hidden truth: the hideout was in ruins, walls cracked, smoke drifting through the broken air vents. Rin sat with his back against the wall, blood dripping slowly from a wound across his shoulder, his face pale but his eyes sharp. The girl knelt near him, her small hands trembling as she tried to bind the wound with torn cloth. Her voice cracked. "You're bleeding because of me." Rin shook his head, his tone calm. "I bleed because I choose to protect you, not because you caused it." Her heart twisted, her eyes wet. She wanted to believe his words, but the guilt burned inside her. No one had ever chosen her, no one had ever fought for her, and yet here was a human who stood in front of blades and fire without hesitation. Why? Why would he risk his life for someone the galaxy had thrown away? Her chest was heavy with questions, questions she had buried for years, but now they clawed their way free. "Who am I?" she whispered, her voice shaking. "Why does everyone want me dead or taken? Why did my own people abandon me?" Rin's jaw tightened, his eyes darkening. He had hoped to keep the truth hidden longer, but the storm had broken, and hiding it now would only destroy her. "You were not abandoned because you were weak," he said slowly. "You were abandoned because you were feared." The girl froze, her breath catching, her hands shaking as she whispered, "Feared?" He nodded. "There is blood in you, old blood, rare blood, a bloodline the galaxy tried to erase." Her eyes widened, memories of whispers, fragments of screams in the night when she was younger. She had always believed her parents left her because she was nothing, but now Rin's words painted a darker truth. "What bloodline?" she asked, her voice a broken whisper. Rin met her eyes, his voice low and heavy. "Your people once had rulers elders with power that could bend light, bend life itself. They were called the Luminaris, and the galaxy feared them." Feared what? They could do. Feared they could never be controlled. Her chest tightened, the word echoing in her mind, Luminaris. She shook her head violently. "No, no, that can't be me. I'm nobody." Rin's eyes were steady, his voice unshaken. "Your power proves it. The mercenaries saw it. I saw it. The galaxy will see it, whether you want it or not." Tears burned down her cheeks, her voice breaking. "If it is true, then why leave me to rot? Why throw me away like garbage?" Rin's face hardened, his voice like steel. "Because they were afraid. Because they thought killing or discarding you was safer than letting you live. Because they feared what you could become if you ever had a chance." Her body shook, fury mixing with grief. All those years, she had believed she was worthless, weak, unwanted, but the truth was far crueler. She was not thrown away because she was nothing. She was thrown away because she was too much. Her eyes glowed faintly again, her hands trembling with light she could not control. "I should hate them," she whispered, her voice filled with rage. "I should burn them all." Rin leaned forward, his voice sharp, cutting through her storm. "No," the word stopped her cold, her glowing hands dimming. He held her gaze, his tone steady. "If you become only what they fear, and they win, you are not a weapon. You are not their monster. You are more than that." Her breath shook, his words striking deeper than any blade. But still, the fire inside her roared, the part of her that wanted revenge, the part that wanted to show the galaxy the pain they had given her. Rin placed a hand on her shoulder, firm but gentle. "You can choose, do you hear me? You can choose who you will be." The silence between them was heavy, broken only by the distant sound of ships overhead. The girl lowered her head, tears dripping onto the floor, her voice barely a whisper. "And if I choose wrong?" Rin's eyes softened, his voice steady. "Then I will remind you, every time, until you choose right again." Her chest ached, but for the first time, she felt something strange, a path, a choice, a future, but the world outside gave no time. For peace, the comms device on Rin's table crackled, voices hissing through it. "The human has the girl, the Luminaris. The council will want her alive." The words froze her blood, her eyes darting to Rin in terror. "The council?" He nodded grimly. "The Galactic Council, the ones who declared your bloodline forbiddens, the ones who fear you most." Her breath hitched, her voice breaking. "Then they will never stop hunting me." Rin's eyes burned with fire, his tone sharp. "No, they won't, but they will have to go through me first." The girl stared at him, her chest tight with fear and something more, something dangerous. For the first time she realized this human was not just protecting her. He was declaring war against the galaxy itself. And though her body trembled, a fire sparked inside her. Maybe she was not worthless. Maybe she was not broken. Maybe she was something the galaxy had never seen before. Outside, ships roared across. The sky, shadows moving closer. The storm was not over. It was only beginning, and as the girl clenched her glowing hands, she whispered to herself, "I will not run anymore." Asterisk humanity's claim. The sky burned with fire as the first council ships descended, their engines roaring like thunder. The city shook under their shadow, towers trembling, streets filled with creatures running in panic. But the panic was not for the council. It was for the girl, the one no one had wanted, now revealed as the last of the Forbidden's bloodline. And beside her stood a human, his stance steady, his eyes unbroken. Rin pulled the girl into the cover of a ruined wall, his rifle charged, his knife strapped to his side. The girl's hands glowed faintly, her chest heaving with fear and fire. "They will kill you for protecting me," she whispered, her voice cracking. Rin's lips curved into the faintest smile, his tone calm. "Then they will learn what it means to fight a human." From above, council enforcers dropped like shadows, armored soldiers with blades of light and rifles that could tear stone apart. Their commander's voice boomed across the ruins. "Surrender the girl, human. She does not belong to you." The girl trembled, every word cutting into her chest. Her whole life had been those same words, "You do not belong." But Rin stepped forward, his voice sharp as steel. "She belongs where she chooses, and she has chosen to stand with me." The soldiers advanced, their weapons glowing, their eyes filled with cold obedience. The girl clutched Rin's sleeve, her voice breaking. "We can't fight them all." Rin glanced at her, his eyes fierce. "We don't need to fight them all. We just need to make them afraid." The first wave struck, rifles blazing, energy tearing into the stone around them. Rin moved like a storm, his rifle answering with fire, each shot finding its mark, each strike carving a path through the enemy. But their numbers were endless. Their armor stronger than mercenaries, their discipline unshaken. Rin gritted his teeth, blood streaking his arm, yet his stance never faltered. Every motion, every strike shouted one truth: "I will not let them take you." The girl's heart thundered, her body shaking as fear battled fury. She saw him bleed for her again and again. And something inside her broke, something that had chained her for years. Her power surged, her hands blazing with light, the ground itself trembling beneath her feet. The soldiers faltered, their eyes widening, whispers cutting through their ranks. "Luminaris, she lives." The commander raised his blade, shouting, "Kill the human, take the girl alive." But the girl stepped forward, her voice rising, no longer small, no longer broken. No, her power burst outward, a wave of light slamming into the soldiers, throwing them back like leaves in a storm. The ruins shook, the air crackled with fire, her eyes glowing brighter than the council's weapons. For the first time, she was not hiding, not running. She was standing. The soldiers regrouped, fear in their steps now, their eyes darting to Rin, to the human who still stood unbroken beside her. He raised his voice, sharp as thunder. "You think she is alone? You think humanity will watch quietly while you hunt children in chains?" The council commander snarled. "She is forbidden. Her bloodline is a threat to order." Rin's voice rose, carrying across the battlefield. "Then let the galaxy remember this. Humanity does not abandon those who are cast aside. If she is forbidden to you, then she belongs to us." The words struck like fire, the girl's chest tightening, tears burning her eyes. No one had ever claimed her. No one had ever said she belonged. But this human had spoken it before the galaxy itself, a truth that could not be taken back. The commander lunged, his blade cutting through the air toward Rin. The girl screamed, her power exploding in a torrent of light, wrapping around Rin like a shield, the strike shattering against it. The soldiers fell back, terror rising in their ranks, whispers breaking their unity. "Impossible," they hissed. "No one can wield power like that." But she stood taller now, her eyes blazing, her voice strong. "I am not nothing. I am not unwanted. I am Luminaris, and I am claimed by humanity." The battlefield fell silent, the soldiers frozen in fear. The council commander staggered back, his weapon shaking, his authority crumbling under the weight of her words. He turned to retreat, but Rin's rifle fired once, the shot echoing like judgment, and the commander fell. The remaining soldiers broke, fleeing into the shadows, their whispers scattering like ash in the wind. The girl's glow dimmed, her body trembling, and she collapsed to her knees, Rin caught. Her, holding her steady, his voice low but steady. It's over for now. She buried her face against him, her voice soft. They will come again. He nodded, his grip firm. Let them. Every time they come, we will remind them. Every time they call you nothing, we will show them you are everything. The girl closed her eyes, her chest heavy but alive. For the first time in her life, she was not afraid of what came next. The galaxy would hunt her. The council would fear her. The shadows would never rest. But she was no longer alone. She was the orphan no one had wanted until a human claimed her. And now, together, they had declared a truth the galaxy would never forget. Humanity had claimed her, and with that claim, her future was her own. Asterisk.